Imagine a machine so powerful it shrank continents, rewrote economies, and reshaped how humanity lives. Yet it all began with a clunky steam engine built just to drain mines. But how did that humble invention evolve into today's bullet trains flying at over 180 miles per hour? And most importantly, how did trains quietly change the world more than almost any other invention in history? And hey, if you've ever judged a train by how dramatic its whistle sounds, you're officially a rail nerd. So hit that subscribe button before the next station passes. The story really begins in the early 1700s with Thomas Newcomen, who built the first practical steam engine, not for trains, but just to pump water out of mines. It wasn't glamorous, but it planted the first seed. Then James Watt stepped in during the late 1700s and changed everything. By adding his famous separate condenser, he made steam engines far more efficient, essentially unlocking the power that later fueled the entire Industrial Revolution. But what happens when someone looks at this revolutionary machine and thinks, why not put this thing on wheels? That wild idea belonged to Richard Trevithick. In 1804, he built the first steam locomotive and actually ran it on rails. It was slow, heavy, and more experimental than practical, but that short trip proved something huge. Steam-powered rail transport worked. The breakthrough came in 1829 when George and Robert Stephenson's rocket won the Rainhill trials. With its smart boiler design and improved cylinders, it could hit over 30 miles per hour, mind-blowing for the time. This win convinced everyone that locomotives were finally ready for real passengers and real business. Just a year later, the Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened, becoming the world's first true intercity passenger line. It carried around hundreds of passengers a day and kicked off a global railway boom. Suddenly, coal, goods, and people could move cheaply and quickly, and that changed the entire Industrial Revolution. You know, if there's one railway project that perfectly shows how trains can reshape an entire country, it's the Transcontinental Railroad in the United States. When it was finished in 1869, it didn't just connect the east and west coasts, it connected two completely different worlds. Before this line existed, traveling across the continent was a long, brutal journey through mountains, deserts, and wilderness. It could take months, cost a fortune, and, honestly, wasn't something many people survived easily. But what about once the railroad opened? That same trip took just a few days. Imagine the shock people must have felt one moment. Cross-country travel meant wagons and danger, and the next, you're gliding across the landscape in a rail car. And the economic impact? Absolutely massive. Farmers suddenly had a way to ship wheat, cattle, timber, basically anything to markets thousands of miles away. Manufacturers could send finished goods across the country, or even to ports for international trade. Moving bulk goods cheaply changed everything. In a way, railroads created the first real national market long before trucks or highways ever came into the picture. The ripple effects didn't stop there. Trains made it possible to move perishable food quickly, which was a game changer. Think about it, fresh vegetables, dairy, seafood, all reaching cities before spoiling. Urban diets improved, nutrition changed, and suddenly, foods that were once local specialties became national favorites. And behind the scenes, an entire workforce bloomed. Thousands of people were needed to lay tracks, build stations, operate engines, and maintain the system. But the magic of railways wasn't just economic. It reshaped society itself. Steam trains boosted travel speeds from a few miles per hour to well over 20 miles per hour, and that increase completely changed how cities functioned. For the first time, people could live in one place and work in another without losing half their day traveling. Suburbs became possible. Business districts grew. It was the early blueprint of the modern city. This pattern repeated everywhere. Chicago and Denver grew rapidly. London expanded through its suburban lines, and countries across Europe and Asia experienced similar transformations. Even today, you can see the same story unfolding in Chinese cities, building metro and light rail networks at record speed. And railways changed how people interacted. They mixed cultures, spread political movements, standardized sports competitions, and even gave the working class their first taste of day trips and mini holidays. Britain even unified its time zones because trains needed synchronized timetables. Can you imagine? Trains literally standardized time. By the time the mid-20th century rolled around, even the most loyal steam fans had to admit something. Steam locomotives, as majestic as they were, had their limits. They were powerful, yes, but they were also high maintenance, fuel-hungry, and needed constant pampering. Meanwhile, the modern world was speeding up. Railways needed something faster, cleaner, and more efficient. But what if the very invention that saved trains from becoming obsolete ended up rewriting the entire future of rail travel? That's when the diesel revolution rolled in. Between the 1930s and the 1960s, especially in North America, railroads shifted from steam to diesel at a pace that must have felt like watching history sprint. By the end of the 1960s, diesel had almost completely taken over on lines without electrification. And honestly, it wasn't hard to see why. Diesel locomotives were far more thermally efficient than steam engines, accelerated better, ran faster, and didn't chew up the tracks as much. Plus, they didn't need to stop every few hours for water, coal, or maintenance. Diesels could run long distances with minimal maintenance, unlike steam engines, which needed constant attention. Economics pushed the transition even further. Steam engines required a large crew of firemen, engineers, and maintenance teams, while diesels were simpler, cleaner, and could even be linked together and controlled by a single operator. Imagine that. Where double-headed steam needed 2 full crews, multiple diesel units ran with just 1. For railroads trying to cut costs and boost reliability, the choice was obvious. But the real transformation of modern rail travel was the leap from fast to future that happened in 1964 with Japan's bold experiment, the Shinkansen. Built in time for the Tokyo Olympics, the first Shinkansen line reduced the Tokyo-Osaka journey from more than 16 hours to just 3 hours and 10 minutes, hitting speeds of 136 miles per hour. For people at the time, this must have felt like stepping into science fiction. The engineering behind it was genius. Streamlined bodies shaped like airplane noses, smooth, wide-gauge tracks, no sharp curves, no level crossings, continuously welded rails, and automatic train control systems that monitored every movement were a complete reinvention of what rail travel could be. Comfort mattered too. The cars rode on air-sprung bogies that soaked up vibrations, making the trips smooth and quiet. Quick pit stop? Drop a comment telling me which you'd ride. A beastly steam locomotive or a 200 miles per hour bullet train? And if your answer changed halfway through this video, yeah, that's your sign to subscribe. Now Japan's success lit a spark around the world. Soon came France's TGV, Germany's ICE, Spain's AVE, and eventually the jaw-dropping Shanghai Maglev, flying along at 267 miles per hour. And then China stepped in with an ambition no one had seen before. From having almost no high-speed rail at the turn of the century, China now operates the world's largest high-speed network, about 23,612 miles, racing toward nearly 43,495 miles by 2035. But here's the mystery. What breakthrough allowed a country to build railways faster than some nations build roads? And how far can this technology really go? You know, when we look at today's bullet trains, it really feels like we're seeing the peak of what electric rail technology can do. These machines aren't just fast, they're masterpieces of engineering. Instead of diesel engines, they draw electricity straight from overhead wires, giving them clean, powerful acceleration. And because the power flows directly from the grid to the motors, the whole system runs smoother and more efficiently. No fumes, no roaring engines, just that sleek, almost effortless glide. What's even cooler is how modern trains actually reuse energy. Thanks to regenerative braking, every time a bullet train slows down, it converts that braking force into electricity and feeds it back into the system. It's like getting free energy just from stopping. Add to that distributed traction where multiple axles are powered instead of just one, and you get better grip, quicker acceleration, and an overall smoother ride. But here's the part almost no one talks about. How does this one engineering choice end up reshaping the entire environmental footprint of modern travel? Honestly, the environmental benefits are incredible. High-speed rail leaves cars and planes far behind when it comes to emissions. A single bullet train can replace hundreds of short flights, and high-speed rail uses around 88% less energy, while producing around 92% fewer carbon emissions per seat compared to airplanes. Projects like the UK's HS2 are already showing that rail journeys can cut emissions by around 90% compared to car or air travel. At a time when the world is worrying about climate change, these efficiency gains aren't just impressive, they're essential. There's an economic bonus too. Every $1 billion invested in high-speed rail creates around 24,000 jobs. And for every dollar spent, economies get about $4 back thanks to boosted productivity and reduced dependence on imported fuel. But the evolution doesn't stop here. The next big leap is magnetic levitation, or Maglev. First imagined back in 1934 by Hermann Kemper, Maglev trains float above the tracks using magnetic forces. No wheels, no friction, just pure speed. China's Maglev already hits 267 miles per hour, and test prototypes have crossed 372 miles per hour. Some engineers are even testing Maglevs inside low-pressure tubes, potentially pushing speeds beyond 621 miles per hour. That's faster than many airplanes. When you zoom out and look at the whole journey from Trevithick's rattling steam engine to Japan's Shinkansen to today's Maglev dreams, it's amazing how trains have shaped our world. They connected cities, powered economies, changed how we live and travel, and now they're leading us toward a cleaner, faster future. And the best part? The story of rail innovation is still far from over. But before you scroll, tell me this. If you could ride only one era of trains for a day, would you pick the roaring steam age or the lightning-fast bullet era? Drop your answer in the comments. And hey, if you're the kind of person who secretly judges trains by their horn sound, then you have to hit that subscribe button.